Hey guys, Pat here. So, I was thinking about something last night and it kept me up for a while and it was very strange. And it only occurred to me after I had watched a video from Rob Ager, who runs the channel Collective Learning, which I highly recommend. He's one of the only people on YouTube that talks about films in the way he does it, where he looks at them from a thematic standpoint and tries to find hidden meaning that's not just there from him, like projecting it onto it, false symbolism, but he tries to do the research himself to find out actually what the filmmakers were really trying to say. And he brought up a great point in a video I was watching of his where he mentioned back in the day when you didn't have access to the internet and word of mouth on movies didn't spread so fast and we didn't have the world of Rotten Tomatoes and so on, today it's a lot easier to hear people's reactions on movies. You can go look at a rating on a website. You can check the box office without getting the paper. It's a lot easier to follow films today. People forget that there was a time when you would have to go see a movie based off a trailer or a poster or an actor in the movie. And that was really all you had. You'd maybe get a film magazine that gave you some information about it, and you could hear rumors, and you'd watch Entertainment Tonight. But for the most part, you were clinging on to any little bit of information you got. And he also got to this point where he mentioned that there was a period of time where people who had something to express and talk about and couldn't, avant-garde people, right? Who couldn't express themselves in the mainstream. They weren't accepted, let's say, on the television or on the news. But they could express themselves through art. They could express these ideas and this philosophy through books, through film, through theater. And that's how a lot of change happened organically through art, is that the artist was secretly telling people about their perspective and views on the world from all the information that they had acquired, and they were presenting it as mass entertainment. But the old school filmmakers that were truly great, and I'm not trying to knock modern Hollywood or modern filmmakers or anything like that. I'm not one of those people that thinks the 2000s suck and all movies are bad now and we're just losing it and all that. I think his explanation was the best I've ever heard. Because a lot of people argue it's the producers. Other people argue that it's, the way the internet affects things and the way that culture's being affected by things. And, everyone seems greedy now. The actors get paid 20, 30 million. They get a back end. Producers want to make hundreds of millions of dollars. They don't want to make an original independent film that might make a little bit of profit. They would rather put $200 million into a superhero film. And you understand why. Completely. But the one thing that he kept going back to that really opened up my eyes to it, that I'd never even thought of yet, it seems like the obvious answer to this, is basically, the way that people used to express themselves was through the arts. Because that was really, at one point, one of the only means to be able to do so. You had to write poetry or short stories or make films to express your ideas. But in the world of the internet and social media, where everyone has a voice and everyone has a platform, he brought up how he wanted to make films, and he wanted to make the films like the directors he loved. And then he got into the business, and he found out it wasn't that way. And I had a very similar experience. I wanted to make original movies like nobody else ever made before. And then when you start going to film festivals and you start hanging out with people who make movies and you're on sets, you start to find out that most people don't want to do that. They want to copy another filmmaker's movie and do their thing. And I'm telling you, this isn't a cliche. It's a reality. If you go and hang out with any film student, or you hang out at any kind of film class, or you hang out with film buffs, you go to the coffee shops, you hang out on an independent set, and I'm talking about movies that cost, $50,000, $100,000. I'm not talking about, mainstream movies, but I've been around a lot of independent filmmakers that raised a lot of money to make a movie. because $100,000 is a lot of money today with digital cameras and digital editing and all that stuff that we can do now. So $100,000, you can make quite a good-looking film if you know what you're doing. And you talk to them, and they want to make a Coen Brothers film. They want to make a Tarantino film. They want to be Kubrick. They want to be Spielberg. They don't have an original idea to express through the art in a unique way. Because, as Rob Ager said, they have all these patterns that they can go back and look on with the history of film to learn from. And see, back when film started, or any kind of art form, nobody knew how it really worked, and they had to discover it organically. So these made all these filmmakers experiment. So that's why when you go watch so many great art films or classic films from back in the day by directors like Bergman, or Kubrick, or Hitchcock, or De Palma, Scorsese, I mean, the list would go on, Fellini, all the cliches. The thing is that those guys were hyper intelligent and had a lot more to say than could be confined just in the limits of film. So they had to learn to do new things with the camera and art design like David Lynch did, or even Ridley Scott. They reinvented the wheel. They found unique ways to shoot movies and for actors to play the parts and to have dialogue done in a certain way. And they used body language in a unique way and lighting. Blue Velvet's a great example of this, where David Lynch used all these new ideas that he found to find a unique, original way to tell a story. You don't see that today. And the argument is that we aren't capable of it anymore. But then it occurred to me last night, it's not that. People are still talented. People still have great stories to tell, and that's occasionally why we get those amazing television shows that come out, like a Deadwood, or a Breaking Bad, or a Mad Men, or a Sopranos, which is at that level of art that we want. The adult drama on HBO is like the 70s character-driven films that a lot of us love so much. And they're like week-to-week, hour-long little movies that are brilliantly written and acted. I mean, cable today's so amazing. So the talent's still there. You watch these shows and you see that there's acting that's next level, and you see that there's writing that's next level. But you don't see it in the Hollywood films as much. It's not as consistent. And it's because there's so many more ways to express yourself now. See, you got to think how limited TV was back in the day. And there was great television like The Twilight Zone or The Untouchables, right? Terrific shows, Dick Van Dyke. But you were still limited with television on what you could do. You couldn't do much with the camera. There wasn't a lot you could do with lighting, I mean, you really were. You were very limited in television for decades. But now with modern TV and shows like Game of Thrones, we see now that they can make television look like movies and give television the spectacle that films had. So that takes away a lot of the niche aspects of movies, which is the spectacle aspect of it, because TV just never had it. Now TV has the dense storytelling and character development mixed with the special effects and action. So it just is superior, right? But Hollywood still used to have something better than that. There used to be something about the 90-minute to 2-hour film that was an expression of the artist's ideas and their views of the world. When you watch a movie like A Clockwork Orange, or A Midnight Cowboy, or A Straw Dogs, or The Graduate, you see the director is trying to say something about culture and society, right? And a lot of films do that today. There are the Moonlights, right? But they don't feel as organic. It's an artificial thing, because they're trying to mimic the impact that films had years ago that they can't have culturally anymore, because we live in a different world. And you have different ways to express yourself. And this is what I'm getting at. Today you can make a YouTube video and express your ideas and articulate them and get them out of the way, and do it in a 5, 20, 30, 40-minute video. And you can use other films and books and philosophy, and you can respond to other people's stuff to express your ideas, and you're being an artist, you're creating. People edit on their own now. I mean, my mother and father know how to edit now on their phones and tablets. People can post now and write. People are learning to write on blogs. People make videos, they do commentary, they do live streams, which is basically being a radio host, which is not something you could have done easily back in the day, being a DJ. But in the era of podcasts and live streams, anyone can be a DJ. Even if nobody's listening, you can humor yourself. So there's so many ways to be expressive now that we're losing a place for movies. You understand, this is why we're not seeing the great visionaries and original artists coming out of film consistently, and why there's not a bunch of great filmmakers. Because most of the independent filmmakers, I feel, fall into a category where they're all very much the same, and you see them all you see the homages everywhere, and you don't ever see the filmmaker. And this is where we're at, because people can now make music digitally. They can upload it online and have people listen to it. You can do animation now digitally, you know, online. You can do everything now. There was a point that when I was with my friends as a teenager, we used to have to edit, write, direct everything on video. We used to cut things on video because we couldn't afford the cameras back then, because back then digital cameras were really expensive. This is a long time ago. It's over a decade ago. So we tried to do things on tape, and I had to edit on tape, you know, and cut things on tape where you film up to a point and then you have to reshoot something and record over what you had. It was ridiculous. But there was something about it, learning how to tell a story and then getting that thing that you wanted to express across in those tapes. When you could get a tape to be flowing and be conveying what you wanted to convey, it's amazing. It's an exciting feeling. It's the best version of yourself when you're into that stuff. It's like when a painter or a musician's playing, anything like that. And then when I started making YouTube videos years ago, I started getting the feeling of satisfaction that I got from working on those videos. Now, I'll say this right now, I've never got as much satisfaction on YouTube as I have from making movies. I've never had more fun than when, you know, I'm working with a crew and actors, and we have a budget, and we have a schedule, and we get to create on the set and organically make this film and hope that it could be something great, but it probably won't be. But we hope. We're all trying. We're all trying to be confident that it could be something special. That's a great feeling, and I've never been able to capture that again in anything else, but that's just my life. However, I would go crazy if I couldn't make YouTube videos or do commentary or talk about things that I feel, and talk about politics or my life or Hollywood or studios and review movies, and talk about filmmakers and their reputations and fans and comic books and all these things that I've always wanted to talk about, that you try to put in your movies and try to simplify them so you don't overcomplicate the picture, and then you try not to be indulgent, right? You don't want to be pretentious. But on YouTube, it's very easy to just make a video, put it together, release it, and see how it goes. And you really don't have anything to lose except maybe some ridicule, which if you can deal with that, it's okay. But today, now, because of YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and all these platforms, and being able to do video essays and reviews and all that, it's a lot easier now to be an artist and put something together that's compelling and emotional and structured well than it was ever before in the history of mankind. It's so easy now. And I think that that's a great point, and I'm not saying it's 100% right or wrong, but Rob Ager bringing this up, to me, it was just dead on. It sounds very pragmatic. The idea that because people now, everyone can be an artist, everyone can make a movie now on your phone with a cheap digital camera. The picture quality is much better than it used to be on like television. Anyone can edit now. You can get editors for very cheap. It used to be impossible to edit stuff. It's easy to make stuff now. It's a lot easier, and it's just only getting easier with time, to where it's becoming an accessory, and that takes the value away. So filmmakers and studios keep trying to up the ante. Hey, more special effects, more complexity, bigger cameras, bigger. That's what a lot of this is. We got to have a big third act special effects finale, so an independent filmmaker could never possibly do a finale this big. We got to go all out and spend millions of dollars to make this a big action scene. And that's what a lot of it is. They want to keep the spectacle going and drive people to the movies, to be like, well, you can only go to the movies to see this thing. But while in doing so, they forget that people used to just go see movies because of good word of mouth, or because there was a rumor floating around, like The Crying Game. The Crying Game had a very slow build. It got great reviews, and then everyone kept talking about the plot twist, and then The Crying Game ended up being a huge hit in the early 90s because of this. It became a major cult classic, and it made like $65 million, and they didn't spend anything on that movie. That doesn't really happen as much today. Now with Rotten Tomatoes, you see the reviews instantly, and then you get online essays and people breaking down all the secret hidden meaning behind the film, and and revealing plot twists and stuff that the director wanted you to find. So it's hard now for a film to build its reputation like that. Everybody knows right away within a few days of the movie coming out, or anyone even seeing it. We all run to see the early reviews for anything. So they try to give you a lot to build hype up, going, hey, you have to go see this action sequence in the theater. You have to go see Gravity in the theater. It won't be the same on television. That's how they try to get you. That's the trick now. And it's not, hey, you got to go see this movie because, man, it's just such an amazing movie. The story was mind-blowing. But it seems like a lot of people are telling stories in different ways now, and it's easier to get access to those stories for nothing. It doesn't cost you anything to watch someone's videos on YouTube. It doesn't really cost you that much to watch Netflix. It's what, $8 a month, $10 a month now to watch Netflix, where you see something like Stranger Things, and there's, the Duffer Brothers are doing that. Then they have movies like Beasts of No Nation by Cary Fukunaga, and you're like, oh, wow, let me watch this movie. And you didn't really pay that much to get all this content. That's the future. I see it now, and I was always kind of fighting it because I thought, well, maybe the great artist era will return. There'll be a renaissance. There'll be this new Hollywood thing again. But I don't think it's going to happen because even the independent film scene, I'm not inspired by most of these filmmakers. They're not really that original, and I'm not trying to insult them. I'm not saying I'm original. I'm just saying I don't see it that much. The most original stuff I'm seeing is in television and online, and I think people are finding ways to talk about things and break down things and theorize and hypothesize and go into things into detail now in a way that you never could before. And you almost had to do it with filmmaking or music or something. And that's why those things were so culturally significant at one time with bands and filmmakers. And it just isn't the same now because now a director gets hired by the studio and he basically makes the movie the studio wants him to make most of the time. The auteur isn't really a thing as much today, and even the writers are kept very separate from the filmmakers, and it's not this dense collaboration where the director has a lot of say on the script. Some directors get that call, like Christopher Nolan or David Fincher, Paul Thomas Anderson, sure, but it's not the norm. And it actually used to be quite the norm. Directors made the movies. They were the guy. Now there's a lot of moving pieces. But the people who get to tell individualistic stories and messages on their own do it now through other means. They don't need someone to edit their stuff. They don't need someone to make their stuff for them. They can do it all on their own now. I've written, directed, edited, and starred my own stuff for years, and it never occurred to me that people weren't able to do this before so easily. And we take it for granted because in reality, we're getting out a lot of that expression and feeling and trying to connect with people and bring these abstract things out to reality to have people understand us a little bit better and tell us they care, and we want to be noticed. That's what it is. You want to be noticed and acknowledged for who you really are, and you want people to at least understand it. They don't have to agree with it. But everyone's doing that today. Everyone's a pseudo-philosopher. Everyone thinks they're Socrates now. Everyone thinks that they can just sit around on these podcasts and talk about things. Everyone, I mean, it's legitimate. Anyone does it now. And that does change things. It does eliminate kind of the role of the artist influencing the culture because the things are mixing now into one thing. The art and society are just kind of becoming one thing now because everyone can be an artist. So I'd say in 20, 30 years, it's going to be even more insane. And you can try and deny it and fight it, and you're going to think film always is the main art form, because it's been, the main art form for like a century, and it's what's burned into our minds, and we love movies. But this is what always happens. Something comes in that's the next revolution of it, and there was that thing about Stanley Kubrick saying that the screenplay was the dumbest thing or the worst form of writing man ever created, and it's true. Because you read a book and there's a lot of description and detail, and there's themes, and the way a novel's structured's amazing, and, plays have that, and they have to give you a lot of scenery. When you write a script, and I've written many scripts, you really just write dialogue and then give little beats of locations and some description. You don't really have to do much, and screenplays are a lot shorter and more to the point. You could write a 100-page script, and you could have a 90-minute movie from that, if not longer. And that's, a novel, you got to think at least 200, 300 pages when you're starting. That's how you need to approach it. So it's just different. And we're seeing a point now where people, I think, got a little tired of that, and now they can write scripts and do video series and basically make documentaries. And with television, you can tell a story over years and constantly challenge yourself as a writer now. And you have the filmmaking equipment now to present your stories in a way you never could before. And it's just going to continue to happen. And it's not that the music industry necessarily was dying or is dead because of illegal downloading. I think it was simply because, once those things happen, the value of the art starts to decline. It's hard to make money being a poet anymore because anyone can write poetry. It's hard to make money being a philosopher because everyone's a philosopher. There'll be a point that once everyone's a filmmaker, it won't be a unique job set anymore, and even the people that are really good at it won't be these millionaires like they were. And you already see this happening. There's going to be less and less visionary filmmakers coming out of the studio system, and you're going to have to find them randomly, and they're going to pop out of nowhere. And I think now, because I can make these videos and tell you my favorite films and talk about my life and how I just want to approach my life and how I want to give people advice. And just from what I've taken, it's being bona fide, like, commentary, like being raw and real without any limits, any studio interference, people telling you what to do, how to do it. It used to be very hard as an artist to get people to watch your stuff and do that without having no audience. You could paint and write or something, but you had no idea if anyone was going to see it. With the internet now, you can do whatever you want, and you have the chance. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but you have the possibility that people can see it. Like I have videos with 100,000 hits, more than that. And that means 100,000 people at least clicked on something I had to say. It was almost impossible to get 100,000 people to look at something you had to say back in the day. But, today we're all kind of getting a bravado that wasn't there before. And I'm excited about it, but I'm also a little worried. Because I think it is going to make movies different, and it's going to make art different. And I think we've already seen how things change in just paintings and how modern art is. And I think we're seeing... I'm not going to blame it on postmodernism. I don't necessarily think it's a postmodernist thing. I think it's just that film maybe reached its peak in a lot of ways, and the new filmmakers keep trying to reach that peak again of older films, like a lot of writers kept trying to reach the peak of classic novels, and you just start getting all these, you start getting a loop over and over again, and then you don't really get the next Star Wars. You just get a bunch of films that people try to make the next Star Wars, and they don't really capture what Star Wars was. But, as always, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But I think that's interesting. But tell me what you think in the comments. I want to have a discussion about this. What do you think the future of film holds? Do you think the artist is losing value? Do you think art is dying in the sense that it's no longer going to be as commercially... it's accessible? Is it going to be, is there ways to do it now where it's really not a money-making thing, you just do it to do it? Artists used to not just make outrageous money from playing music or trying to write plays and stuff. And then movies, for years you got paid a lot, but it feels like now people are going to start making movies and not care if they make money or not. And once you have that, things are going to lose value. And I wonder what the role of the artist is in the future and where it's going to go, if it is the internet or completely on television and streaming. Or is the theater going to make a return? And the live connection and the audience feeling. I don't know. But please tell me what you guys think in the comments. Like and subscribe. And guys, please rewind your VHS tapes before you take them back to the store. Please. It's a real hassle.